stories of Souls games have always...
No! Gonna get flagged for Vatti. Alright. So, well, we have all this interesting information. Big credit to Vatti for the video talking about the Souls bosses. We did do a live reaction to this, and I actually really appreciated it. But you guys know how we break things down here for Bad Gamers Bias Review. There's 3 categories that I like to focus on the absolute most for all of these playthroughs. One is the features itself in-game. How does it actually play? With the extra stuff that the game is giving you, the extra stuff that's happening within the game, does it make it less fun? Is it tedious? Does it feel smooth? Do things that you learn in the beginning of the game carry through to the end of the game and help you in any way, shape, or form? Or does it just end up, like in most people's opinion, like the draw system in Final Fantasy VIII, where at the beginning of the game, it's like, hey, this is neat. This is a fun way to do this. By the end of the game, you're like, I hate it. Why am I still having to do this? So let's jump into that. First tab for this is going to be our systems for Dark Souls 3. Being that this was my first playthrough of a Dark Souls game, I can honestly say the systems in Dark Souls 3 were vast, interesting, and actually added to the experience. From something like weapon arts for each type of weapon, two-handed weapons versus one-handed weapons with a shield, stuff that I didn't use but I've seen gameplay of with magic, with different spells within the game, different classes of magic, all that's like interesting. And as the game progressed, the systems within Dark Souls 3 made it better. You could look at a boss and say, okay, wait a second, do I go ranged here? If I have more reach, is this going to help me out? Do I need more power per swing? Little decisions like that added to or took off pulls for a boss to actually get to defeat it. And it made that intuitive decision making that I think is like a cornerstone of FromSoft's games in general, but especially with Dark Souls 3, very fun. Systems in the game, even from the way that you're leveling up, the way that you're putting points in certain areas as you're progressing through the game. If you made terrible decisions early on, there were going to be weapons that you couldn't use. You literally had to start figuring out exactly what you needed to do, how you needed to build it, and what was going to be an interesting playstyle from you from start. Or it was what it was, and you were going to try to figure out how to take those fights on just the way you were. And honestly, that's how we played our first playthrough with the Sword and Board. And I can definitely see where those systems would have made it easier to switch in and out of some of those, and might have made the game a little bit easier. Very well might. So in terms of how were the systems and how was the gameplay throughout for all of Dark Souls 3, for the base game and for the DLC, I would honestly say this was one of the more intuitive, sometimes confusing with statistics and how everything mattered with where you were putting each individual point. Quite easily one of the most intuitive systems, fight styles, themes, and variances in any game I've ever played. Unlike a Final Fantasy, or unlike other games, where it's here's the systems, now you have to try to master them by the end of the game. Dark Souls gave you a reason to want to replay this again with their systems, because even though you got used to one, or one was more fun, or was fun for the playthrough, you could go back and change it and have to master something entirely different for a new game plus. That is one of those reused facets that I don't think a lot of video games now keep in mind when they're putting it together. So huge ace, as many points as I can possibly give it for the way the systems work in Dark Souls 3. Our second category for the Bad Gamer Bias Review is always going to be story. It's always going to be, did the story captivate? Did the story itself make the game more interesting? This is literally cheating for Dark Souls 3 in my opinion. I don't think that I've ever been more enthralled, got done with a game, a playthrough, or a section of a playthrough on Twitch, gone straight to YouTube and looked for lore videos. The reason we found Vatti. FromSoft created an absolute masterpiece in terms of the lore being, how do you think it works? What do you think is happening? How does this affect you specifically? How did you affect the outcome of the story? Did you do anything right? It really made you feel the gravity and the weight of your decisions, and you didn't know until your ending if you got it right. This was one of the most cerebral, like just insanely mental lores attached to a game that literally drug me into it. As a classic RPG player, you know, a lot of the games that we played growing up in that classic genre were heavy because they meant so much to us on a story level. Dark Souls took that concept, flipped it, made it dark, turned it into an actual nightmare, and made you care. And to say that for a game for as many titles as I played that were all about the story, that speaks volumes for Dark Souls. As a genre, but for 3 specifically. That feeling of being lost, wondering who that person is, trying to figure out if the item that you picked up that was in the boss room had any relevance lore-wise, and reading the item in-game and getting a tidbit. And you had to put all those tidbits together to even barely understand what the hell was actually going on. Times it can get extremely overwhelming, but that's because of the massive universe of lore that these guys created for Dark Souls. So whatever the metric is for trying to put things in terms of, like, you know, points per scale for how the lore stacks up in the Bad Gamer Bias review, this game has to have one of the most comprehensive and deep lores out of any game I've ever played. And I really love that about this game specifically for Dark Souls 3. So huge ace for the lore style of the game. The overall, was the game fun? Would I play it again? And, like, how did the music and the other things in the game make this memorable for me? Was it a good playthrough? After you got past the bitter defeat, frustration, absolute confusion, playing this game for the first time with chat literally making you hate every second of your existence for the first half of this game. The difficulty of the bosses, you didn't pay attention to a certain color, so that boss took an extra 30 pulls. Hey, this is completely optional. Why is this guy killing me in 2 shots? And why is he also riding a dragon? When you look past all of the frustrations and you actually complete your first playthrough, I can honestly say that you go back and look at this and say, God damn, I've never played a game like this. I've never played a game that felt so fulfilling to actually get it over with. And in terms of get it over with, I don't mean get it over with and put it away, because I have played a second playthrough of Dark Souls 3. Completely off stream, for fun. And for those of you guys that know me, most of the time my fun comes from making music, playing Fuser, or playing classic RPGs, or WoW with the rest of our guild. This game was so good that I spent the time in my off time playing it again. Everything from the music, the cinematic changes in ambience throughout each one of the levels, feeling like I'm in a different world for each individual zone that was there. It was just bonkers. What? Good. So, in terms of the third, how was it? I'm very upset that I did not play this game on launch. I have a feeling it had a lot to do with active duty for a reason why I didn't run into it. But I can say this game for me goes on a platform by itself. I don't think when people say the word Souls-like, it truly encapsulates just how good this game itself with Dark Souls 3 is. Because in my opinion, I don't think I've ever played a game that was this captivating, had the art and music lined up so perfectly, had systems that actually worked. When you hit roll, you're gonna roll. When you hit parry, it has to be to the millisecond. Your margin for error on certain bosses in this game were insanely small. And if you didn't somehow gain a mastery of what you were doing throughout Dark Souls 3 of a single facet of the game, you wouldn't beat it. And let's not even get into the DLC. Because this being a review about the game itself, this is just me talking about the base game. If you add DLC to this game, we don't have a metric on Bad Gamer's Bias review that could actually encapsulate just how much better that made this game. Difficulty, insane ramps 10x. Story, wrapping up a story that had started with Dark Souls 1 that trickled into Bloodborne, was a little bit a part of Dark Souls 2 somehow. I'm still not sold on that, to its own weird realm. But everything from start to finish for the base game and the DLC was literally a grade above anything else that I've ever played. This was one of the most difficult and fun games I've ever played on Twitch, and one of the most fulfilling to go and want to actually learn the lore and understand what the hell was going on throughout this game. I don't know that we'll ever see another game like this. Honestly, I think FromSoft really outdid themselves, and they set the bar so high that I don't know that anything is going to come close for a very, very long time. Overall, after all of the things that we've talked about, and me just literally gushing about how insane this game was in every single way, there is still no such thing as a perfect game. And I do think that there are some things in the game to put a couple of the negatives that are going to take this out of a 10 out of 10 for me. There are a couple of things in game that I think they could have done a better job explaining. Maybe a couple of extra DLC or NPCs in the game filling in that story. Maybe a couple of different ways to understand what's actually going on. as opposed to leaving things so open. So for as much as I love what they did with this story, and for as much as I love feeling like it's a constant cliffhanger, I do feel like having some resolution does help people feel like they accomplished something. And there's certain parts of the game where I felt like I was just doing something because if I didn't, I was going to die. There's an upside and a downside to that. In terms of that being just a minor kink in the armor that is Dark Souls 3 as a fantastic game, that's the one thing that I didn't really like as a very classic RPG gamer that really loves those games because of their story. I feel like a couple of hints in-game for what the hell was actually going on with the story would have made it literally a 10 out of 10. So that being said, my overall grade for Dark Souls 3 is going to be a 9.5 out of 10. And literally, just for the lack of understanding for the story. I could go on for another hour on just how good everything was from start to finish for this game, and how you had just this feeling of what is this universe for the first time ever playing this game. And playing 3 before I played 1 made the wonderment and excitement even more insane. I was looking forward to starting this game up, even though I knew I was going to get crushed every night we were playing this. And I look forward to anything being this good in the future, and I'm not going to get my hopes up that anything ever does. But huge shout out to FromSoft for the highest grade we've ever had on the YouTube channel or here on Twitch. And we look forward to hearing if any of you guys have played this one before you played Dark Souls 1, or maybe just hearing how you felt about Dark Souls 3 through the playthrough in the comments. Again, if you guys are enjoying the content here on the channel, make sure that you are liking and subscribing, following us on Twitch, which we are currently live on right now while we're doing this, but liking and subscribing to YouTube. We are interested in seeing what the community thinks from Twitch, and as well as our growing YouTube community, on what type of content you guys would like to see. So please take a second to hit that button. If you don't want to be bothered by every single video that we have that goes up on YouTube, be sure to turn the notification bell off. We do put content up every 48 hours. That can get kind of redundant, and I'm not here to fucking bother you just to be like, hey, go watch my shit. If you get around to it, get around to it. Thank you guys so much for being here for the next edition of the Bad Gamer Bias review. Look forward to the next one coming very soon for Dark Souls 1 Remastered. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you again real soon.